Hello everyone, welcome to Business School 101. With the third largest nominal GDP, Japan is one of the largest and most developed economies in the world. Japan is also the home of many global Fortune 500 companies, which include Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Panasonic, SONY, Hitachi, Toshiba, and many more. So what is Japan's general business environment? Can we apply Hofstede's cultural framework to analyze Japan's business culture? Do Japanese companies obtain unique organizational cultures or business etiquettes? In this video, I will discuss these topics with you. Section 1. General Business Environment. Japan's economy was the world's second largest from 1968 until 2010, when it was overtaken by China. According to the World Bank, Japan's nominal GDP in 2019 was estimated to be $5.06 trillion. Its GDP per capita is around $40,100. This is slightly less than two-thirds of America's GDP per capita, but is almost equivalent to the United Kingdom and France. In addition, the Japanese yen is the world's third largest reserve currency, after the US dollar and the euro. On the Corruption Perception Index, 2020, Japan ranks 19th out of 180 countries, receiving a score of 74 on a scale from 0 to 100. This suggests that the country's public sector is relatively free from corruption. In terms of education, Japan's populace is well educated, and its society places high value on education as a platform both for socio-economic mobility and for gaining employment in the country's high-tech economy. English is a compulsory subject in junior high and high schools. There are also elementary schools that introduce English education within intermediate grade classes. According to the 2020 data, Japan has a population of 125.7 million and has the second longest overall life expectancy at birth of any country in the world, sitting at 84 years. It is also worth noting that the Japanese population is rapidly aging as a result of a post-World War II baby boom followed by a decrease in birth rates. Section 2. Japan's Hofstede scores. As we covered in a previous video, Hofstede's cultural framework is one of the most widely used tools to analyze a country's culture. Therefore, let's check Japan's scores in Hofstede's six-dimension cultural framework. Please keep in mind that the Hofstede score on each dimension ranges on a scale from 0 to 100. Dimension 1. Power distance. Power distance refers to how openly a society or culture either accepts or rejects differences between people, for instance, hierarchies in the workplace, in politics, and so on. At an intermediate score of 54, Japan holds a borderline hierarchical society. It is true that Japanese people are always conscious of their hierarchical position in any social setting and act accordingly. However, it is not as hierarchical as most of the other Asian cultures. Some foreigners' experiences with Japan have been extremely hierarchical because of their business experience of painstakingly slow decision-making processes. For example, in a big company, all the decisions must be confirmed by each hierarchical layer and finally by the top management in Tokyo. Paradoxically, the exact example of their slow decision-making process shows that in Japanese society there is no one top guy who can make the decision compared to a more hierarchical society. Another example of not so high power distance is that Japan has always been a meritocratic society. There is a strong notion in the Japanese education system that everybody is born equal and anyone can get ahead and become anything if they work hard enough. Dimension 2. Individualism. The individualism versus collectivism dimension considers the degree to which societies are integrated into groups, as well as their perceived obligations and dependence on groups. It can also refer to people's tendency to take care of themselves and their immediate circle of family and friends, perhaps at the expense of the overall society. Japan scores 46 on the individualism dimension. Certainly, Japanese society shows many of the characteristics of a collectivistic society, such as putting the harmony of groups above the expression of individual opinions. This causes people to have a strong sense of shame for losing face. However, it is not as collectivistic as most other Asian neighbors. The most popular explanation for this is that the Japanese society does not have extended family system, which forms a base of more collectivistic societies such as China and Korea. Japan has been a paternalistic society, and the family name and asset was inherited from father to the eldest son. The younger siblings had to leave home and make their own living with their core families. Therefore, Japanese are experienced as collectivistic by Western standards and experienced as individualist by Asian standards. They are more private and reserved than most other Asian societies. Dimension 3. Masculinity. The masculinity versus femininity dimension is also referred to as tough versus tender, and it considers the preference of society for achievement, behavior, attitude towards gender equality, and more. At 95, Japan is one of the most masculine societies in the world. However, in combination with their mild collectivism, you do not see assertive and competitive individual behaviors that we often associate with masculine culture. What you see is rather a severe competition between groups compared to competition of individuals. From a very young age of kindergarten, children learn to compete on sports day for their groups. In corporate Japan, you see that employees are most motivated when they are fighting in a winning team against their competitors. What you also see as an expression of masculinity in Japan is the drive for excellence and perfection in their material production. For example, JIT production, in material services, such as services in hotels and restaurants, and in presentation, like gift wrapping and food presentation, in every aspect of life. Notorious Japanese workaholism is another expression of their masculinity. It is still hard for women to climb up the corporate ladders in Japan with their masculine norm of hard and long working hours. Dimension 4. Uncertainty avoidance. The uncertainty avoidance dimension considers the extent to which uncertainty and ambiguity are tolerated. This dimension also considers how unknown situations and unexpected events are dealt with. At 92, Japan is one of the most uncertainty-avoiding countries on Earth. This is often attributed to the fact that Japan is constantly threatened by natural disasters from earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, to volcano eruptions. Under these circumstances, Japanese learn to prepare themselves for any uncertain situation. In corporate Japan, a lot of time and effort is put into feasibility studies and making sure all the risk factors must be worked out before any project can start. Managers ask for all the detailed facts and figures before making any decision. This high need for uncertainty avoidance is one of the reasons why changes are so difficult to realize in Japan. Dimension 5. Long-term orientation. The long-term orientation versus short-term orientation dimension considers the extent to which society views its time horizon. Long-term orientation emphasizes perseverance and growth. In contrast, short-term orientation focuses on the near future by delivering short-term success and emphasizing the present. At 88, Japan scores as one of the most long-term oriented societies in the world. In corporate Japan, you see long-term orientation in the consistently high rate of investment in R&D even in economically difficult times. The idea behind it is that the companies are not here to make money every quarter for the shareholders, but to serve the stakeholders and society at large for many generations to come. Dimension 6. Indulgence. Indulgence indicates that a society allows relatively free gratification related to having fun in life. Conversely, restraint indicates that a society suppresses gratification of needs and regulates it through social norms. Japan, with a low score of 42, is shown to have a culture of restraint. Societies with a low score in this dimension have a tendency to cynicism and pessimism. Also, in contrast to indulgent societies, restrained societies do not put much emphasis on leisure time and are controlling of the gratification of their desires. People with this orientation have the perception that their actions are restrained by social norms and feel that indulging themselves is somewhat wrong. Section 3. Organizational cultures. Generally, the Japanese organizational cultures have 4 features: consensus, hierarchy, loyalty, and relationship-oriented. Let us discuss them individually. First, consensus. In larger Japanese businesses as well as in other institutions and services such as the government, consensus is stressed as the primary way to arrive at decisions. Decisions are understood as the sum of all contributions. Because of this, the role of a manager or leader is often to facilitate building consensus. The primary role of a leader is seen as maintaining harmony rather than a source of authority or to be head decision maker. The process of consensus requires the leader to prepare the foundations for the proposed change or project by talking to others, gathering information and feedback, and so forth. Though a time-consuming process, it is seen as a necessary way to promote both group and individual interests. Moreover, once a decision is made, implementation is usually relatively smooth, since most stakeholders have already been involved and feasibility has already been established. Second, hierarchy. Hierarchy plays an important role in the consensus building process. The leader is expected to have one-on-one discussions with each member of the decision-making group. Consultation and feedback from higher-ranked members is particularly important. Higher-ranked members in a company or institution expect to be informed and consulted of a decision prior to the formal announcement at a meeting. Failing to do so may mean a rejection of the proposal. The importance of consensus building and hierarchy is reiterated through problem-solving processes. In Japanese business culture, employees are generally not expected to attempt to solve a problem themselves. When a problem occurs, employees are expected to first report the problem to their superior, who then updates their boss to find a solution. Finally, the boss is again consulted once the problem is resolved. Third, group identity and loyalty. Collectivist characteristics found in the Japanese society extend into their business culture. Individuals tend to regard themselves as a representative of the group or company. Employees are often loyal to their organizations and companies, in part due to the nature of their lifetime employment. In corporate or professional organizations, individuals are usually recruited directly out of a university and only leave once they reach the mandatory retirement age. Attaining a corporate job in large companies is highly competitive and is largely based on the individual's academic ability as well as the reputation of the university. Companies will also provide training. Therefore, there is a preference for younger employees who can be trained to fulfill the exact needs of the company. Employees are expected to be dedicated, work hard, and demonstrate loyalty in exchange for job security and other benefits such as bonuses and housing subsidies. The hierarchical and uniform nature of employment in these organizations means that career progression is often highly predictable, regulated, and automatic. People usually gain promotions based on ability and seniority. Fourth, relationship-oriented. Building and maintaining relationships is a fundamental part of Japanese business culture. People generally expect and desire long-lasting partnerships. As a part of this long-term approach, Japanese people tend to want to know a great deal about their partners. Your Japanese counterpart may ask questions or ask for details that seem irrelevant or unrelated, engage in small talk, and exchange business cards. Though these processes may seem cumbersome, they are an important part of establishing the relationship and building the trust and loyalty needed to support future business. As a way to establish rapport, there also tends to be socializing outside of the office, especially within activities such as evening drinks or dinners. People also generally aim to build strong relationships with colleagues and staff. Internal relationships are very important due to the decision-making process of building consensus. For example, if someone takes time off work to travel, it is common for people to bring back a souvenir to their coworkers to demonstrate thoughtfulness. Failing to do so may be seen as rude or inconsiderate. Importantly, people generally maintain a distinction between business relationships and personal relationships. Nepotism or favoritism are not commonly found in Japanese businesses, and it is usually rare for employees to receive special privileges based on their relationships. Section 4. Business etiquette. When handling business with Japanese, you should pay attention to the following issues. 1. Punctuality is highly valued in Japan. Everyone is expected to be on time for meetings and appointments. Aim to arrive some time before, or exactly on the designated time. If you expect delay, politely and apologetically inform your Japanese counterpart. 2. The most common form of greeting in Japan is a bow, which varies depending on the context and social relationship between the two parties. However, when meeting with foreigners in a business context, Japanese may choose to shake hands. In these situations, it is better to follow the lead of your Japanese counterpart and greet in the same manner. 3. When meeting a business partner for the first time, it is polite to use formal titles. In Japan, people are often referred to by their surname, and titles or honorifics are added as a suffix. 4. It is respectful to greet everyone in the room individually, regardless of the size of the group. 5. When offering a business card, the card itself should be in good condition. Present the card with both hands and a slight bow. Do not pass business cards around like playing cards, as this may be interpreted as rude. 6. When receiving a business card, use both hands with a slight bow to take the card. Place the card in front of you on the table until everyone is seated. Do not fold the card or place it in the back pocket of your pants. Similarly, do not write on the business card unless directed to do so. 7. Allow for some small talk before mentioning business matters. 8. It is common for hosts to indicate to guests where to sit. The higher the ranking of the person, the closer they will sit to the leader. Often, these guests will be offered to sit close to the leader, which is usually farthest away from the entrance. If your Japanese counterpart does not indicate where to sit, the most appropriate choice is to sit closest to the entrance to demonstrate humility. In large meetings, common practice is to have people from the same company sit on the same side of the table, with the highest ranking farthest away from the door. 9. Tea may be offered during the meeting. Wait until your Japanese counterpart begins drinking before you begin. Try not to ignore the tea, as it may be interpreted as a sign of disrespect. 10. It is rude to answer or use mobile phones during a business meeting. Ensure your phone is on silent to avoid interruptions. 11. It is common for there to be periods of silence during the meeting. Avoid the urge to fill the silence as it may be viewed as impatient. 12. Try not to interrupt someone or talk over someone if possible. It is also important to speak slowly, pause between points, and provide your Japanese counterpart the opportunity to respond. You can show your attentiveness to the speaker by using interjections or nodding your head. 13. Consensus is foundational in Japanese business culture. This means that meetings and negotiations may take quite some time as consensus is built among the relevant parties. Patience is critical during negotiations. 14. As indirect communicators, Japanese people often avoid direct refusals or negative responses and instead may provide an ambiguous response. Indirect responses are often a way to maintain harmony, prevent a loss of face, or to respond out of politeness. For example, someone may respond to a request with "I will consider it." Pay attention to the tone and body language of your Japanese counterpart and aim to avoid giving direct or blunt responses to questions. 15. Consider using physical aids for your presentation, such as handouts or writing on a whiteboard. These are preferred over PowerPoints or overly technical presentations. Alright, that is all for today's topic. So, what do you think about Japanese business culture? Do you have any related experience or story you are willing to share? Please leave your thoughts in a comment below. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.